So there's sessions that are meant to disassociate you from your problems, because so many people identify with their problem. They think they're fat, they think they're a smoker, they think they're an alcoholic. The reality is we are infinite beings with potential to do whatever we want. But if you want to be those things, then your brain will prove you right.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Otto Gomes Crypto Show. I am your host and teacher, Professor Otto Gomes. Today, I have a very, very special guest. He has created, invented, founded a technology that I use every day, 2, sometimes 3 times a day. And it honestly has pretty much changed my life. I've worked in front of the computer for a long time, and I feel like this is helping me reset, re-embody myself. So without further ado, Dr. Patrick K. Porter, PhD, is an award-winning author, speaker, and the founder of BrainTap, the leader in technology-enhanced meditation. Dr. Porter pioneered the use of brainwave entertainment to improve clarity, sleep, and energy, and remains at the forefront of scientific research. He founded BrainTap with the goal of making this technology accessible to everyone. BrainTap offers over 1,800 original audio sessions in 12 languages and serves a worldwide user base with its mobile app and headset. Dr. Porter has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, People, Entrepreneur, Inc., and on ABC, NBC, CBS as an expert in brain health and wellness. And in 2020, Dr. Porter received the IAFNR Lifetime Achievement Award. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Patrick Porter. Thank you, brother. Thank you so much for showing up here and sharing your energy.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm on a mission to better a billion brains. And so the more we can get out there, the better. That's the goal.
Better a billion brains. I love that. That's a great saying. It's a perfect representation of what you're doing here. So tell me about yourself. I want to get to know you a little bit more. I call it the hero's journey towards this point in your reality, and what specifically was your red pill moment that shook you out of the matrix?
Well, what happened with me was my dad was a Silva instructor. So I grew up meditating and using the Silva method, which was they call it going to level. We used devices like GSR machines. But then in 1985, I was hospitalized for a bisulfite poisoning. I breathed in bisulfite into my lungs. I had chemical pneumonia. And I had a spontaneous healing in the hospital. It was a life-changing event. When that happened, they kept me in the hospital for 2 months to figure out how they healed me. They didn't do anything. It was divine intervention or something happened, and my body got healed. But all the bisulfites were out of my body. All the heavy metals were gone. It was an instantaneous thing. And after that, I had to move to Phoenix. I just had this desire to go there and learn. And that's where I took most of my trainings with Richard Bandler, John Grinder, and their group. At that time, they were out of Boulder, Colorado, NLP Comprehensive. But then along that way, a series of events happened. Another, I think, divine intervention. I was hooked up with a company called Light and Sound Research. And we were looking at sound. And we were using a lot of the HemiSync tapes from Robert Monroe and things like that to figure out, and those are very good. They're very good strategy. But then when the EEPROM chip came out, which is the first programmable chip that you could program yourself, and you could buy the kit at Radio Shack. So this is how far back it went. And we were making these little machines in our back office, and we took a prototype that was for our professional unit, which was $10,000. We built our first prototype in the 80s. And then the rest is pretty much history. I started a franchise company, did my thing there. I sold that in 2002. Didn't really retire, but I left the field for a little bit, just did some public speaking, getting out there. And then in 2013, my wife and I got together. We were living in the Bay Area, San Francisco, and thought, we're around all these high-tech people, geniuses. Let's see if we can build what I really wanted to build back in the 90s, but I couldn't because nobody had the technology. And we built the first headset with this BrainTap, which is all combined using the auricular therapy, as well as the retinal flashing, as well as the sound therapies, all those therapies together. And it all kind of happened as, how things happen. One thing leads to another, and now we're in our sixth generation of the BrainTap, and every time it just gets a little bit better, and we have a worldwide audience. I just posted on my social media. We actually have a group of 120 people in the South Pole that they posted their picture of doing BrainTap on the South Pole. So we're trying to get on every continent, and now we just need the North Pole, and I think we'll be everywhere. So
that's interesting, because I know that in the polls you get a lot of people with issues with circadian rhythm because of the sun and it being up all day. Has that helped them with that, specifically with that?
What triggered it was we did a study in Brazil with coal miners. And so they're working in the dark the whole time. They don't get to see the light of day. And of course, none of them were sleeping well. Their sleep was so poor. We did the BioStrap, was the tool we used to measure their sleep over the 6-week period. And we were able to improve the sleep scores of the miners by 70% in 3 weeks. And then when they just used our app alone, it took 6 weeks to get that 70%. And they averaged between 80 and 90% sleep scores on their BioStrap. And then we had a 2-week washout because, we're not in Australia. We had an assistant over there, one of our doctors. And they continued to improve 2 weeks after using the BrainTap. So we show people, this is brain fitness. Once the brain learns, it's like a muscle, in similar ways, if you use it, it gets stronger. And we're talking about those neural pathways. And resetting the circadian rhythm is really a feature of light. Because every cell of our body has something called a chromophore on it, which absorbs light, sound, and vibrational energy. And we use it for energy as humans. Now, the easiest way to get energy, of course, is go sit down and have a meal, but that takes 4 to 6 hours. But our bodies are designed like solar panels. We absorb light energy and use it for, in fact, that's what changes our genetic makeup. Maybe we'll get into that a little later. It's called biophotic exchange, but our whole biology changes based on the light we're in. So when somebody says they have jet lag, really what they have is they have light lag, because the light from the sun is telling our bodies. As an example, if you don't get to sleep before 12 o'clock, you don't make as much, you don't make as much melatonin. In fact, they say twice as much melatonin is made during the hours of 10 to 12 as after 12. So it's a feature of that. At 2 o'clock every afternoon, everybody listening, you probably find yourself going for the coffee, the tea, the chocolates, because at 2 o'clock, your temperature drops 2 degrees. But the reality is what we really need is a reboot, a brain reboot. That's why we have people do that BrainTap. And then in the middle of the night, if you found yourself waking up 2 to 3 in the morning and you're hot, sweaty, that's because your temperature increases 2 degrees. Now, if your brain is not regulated, it can spiral up to 5 degrees. That's why people it's like going into a sauna. So we need to regulate the brain so that it can go through these natural rhythms. It's not a monthly cycle. We have an hourly, daily, weekly, monthly cycle. Everyone, you don't have to be a female. Our bodies go through these cycles.
That's amazing. Would you say that there is now, because of technology, because of blue light, even it's even more important than ever in the last decade or so to do this kind of work because of blue light?
Yeah, well, exactly. And the problem is that it's the negative blue light. Anything under 450 nanometers, we use 470 nanometer. It's actually been proven. We have 3 studies now that prove that we lower the pressure in the eyes, like for glaucoma, it's a healing light. But if it's below 450, which is what, like our LCD screens and things, they don't care what frequency it is, then it can basically trick the nervous system into thinking it's daylight when it's not. And for 20% of the people out there, it can be pretty severe. If you're not sleeping well, you might even have to go around with little black tape and everywhere you see light. Some people are that sensitive. They need to block out that light so that, because those are those chromophores I was talking about earlier. Their whole job is to absorb light energy. So some people are super sensitive. They walk by an EMF tower and they actually feel it. I have a doctor friend that if you turn on an iPhone 13 or higher, they pass out.
Wow.
And so, he has signs everywhere in his office, turn off your cell phones, because he's that sensitive. Most
Wow,
people,
is that an oxygen deprivation issue? Why he
yeah,
passes out?
I don't know, but what's really weird is when we tested his nervous system, he has a very high functioning nervous system. I
Right.
mean, it tests out really well. But if you expose him to EMF, he actually goes by the name Dr. EMF. So and he's like his own. He's like a canary in
I was
the
about to
mine.
say, he's the first one to notice.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's just a matter of how fast does your nervous system regulate? We
Right.
all get hit every day. When Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan till they get hit. We everybody gets hit every day, and some people, their nervous system just rolls with the punches, no problem. But that's where BrainTap comes in. We need to reboot the brain, and we've designed 3 different times during the day to do it. Of course, we have the morning where we wake people up. We call it digital coffee. There's a brainwave called SMR, sensory motor rhythms. And this is the brainwave that, as we get better looking and more intelligent with age, this is the one that actually starts to atrophy. It has to do with the vestibular system. So when we have a balance tracker here in the clinic, and we did a study where we showed just by doing SMR training, the elderly people in the study had better balance. Now, of course,
Wow.
if you add exercise with it too, like planks and physical exercise, it's going to be even faster. In the middle of the day, we do the session where we reboot the brain, because if you can do it with your electrical system, um, in yoga, they always talk about pranic energy and the energy in the breath. But we know there's something in our act of breathing. And when we get depressed or anxious, every negative emotion has pretty much one thing in common: lack of breath or shallow breathing.
Mm.
And so when you start to breathe deep, roll your shoulders back, roll your chin upward, your body actually picks up, if you will, a frequency of health and healing. And, so it's almost like our body acts as an antenna to pick up these frequencies or these brain waves. So your physiology does affect your psychology, and it will affect brainwave activity. And then at night, of course, we have so many people that are overdoing it. We call it neurological lock. They get so stressed out at night that they're not able to turn off that what's called sympathetic drive.
Mm-hmm.
And this is caused by dopamine. When you're talking about computers and triggering blue light, a lot of people don't understand dopamine isn't created by an activity. It's created by the anticipation of the activity. So I always
Oh,
tell people that are older, like myself, you probably remember when you were in college and you're getting ready to go out, you got so excited and you were all geared up. And then you get to the nightclub and you're like, this didn't live up to the billing. The old saying that all unhappiness stems from unfavorable comparisons. In the brain, the anticipation is much more valuable to the dopamine release than the actual reality. That's why games are always going to levels, and you're always, what's the next thing? What are you going for? Because that's what drives the dopamine chase.
I want to bring clarity to everybody listening. You probably missed it, but he basically proved that we are creators of our reality.
Yes.
We're going to create the reality before it even happens. So that's why it's so, the brain and its connection to our gut and the synchronicity of that is so important, finding that balance. So you mentioned brain fitness, and I'm curious to what that actually means. If you can break that down. Well, I've heard the buzzword neuroplasticity, so I'm
Yes.
wondering if that's the same.
So it's very similar. Neuroplasticity is a feature of brain fitness.
Mm-hmm.
Brain fitness is the capacity to do work. So just like muscle fitness, if you're able to lift weights, do your workout, and you're able to recover. A lot of people, they're not able to recover. They have a stressful situation, and you hear about it in the morning, you call them that evening, they're still talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and so we need to have ways of handling it. And psychological, right now, fear is probably the biggest reason our brain shuts down. And, there's a lot of what now they're calling fear porn out there, because they're just finding different ways to scare the heck out of us. And the reality is that we have a very powerful immune system. It's actually linked, it's called psychoimmunology, which means our psychology affects our immune system. And they've proven that. They've actually proven a couple things that I want to share with your audience. Number one is that we are light beings. That's not a metaphysical concept anymore. In fact, when I work with the military, I get them to believe it first because they wear infrared goggles, right?
Mm.
And the only reason they can see you in the dark is because your body is emitting 8-10 nanometer light. Now that just happens to be a very healing light. So some people emit more light than others, so they become healers, or just in their presence, you begin to heal. But
Wow.
what they did a
I'm
study
sorry,
during,
just take a moment because that's powerful what you just said. It's like you just scientifically proven that ability to heal. Okay, sorry, keep
yeah.
going.
So two things I want to mention about that. Number one, they did a study during COVID, and you're able to measure this with a light meter. It's most people can't see it, right? Some people are gifted, they can see this corona discharge off people, which some people call it an aura, but in paintings of holy men, they show it around their head. But every one of us has this corona discharge. It's just not some is weaker than others. But what they showed was people who were in a state of grace, peace, harmony, gratitude, they actually transmit 200 times more light than people who are in fear, anxiety, and stress. So it behooves us to become more. Now, one thing that I knew before that study was my science officer, his name is Dr. Francisco Cedral. He invented the clothing that Tom Brady wears. It's called TB12, recovery wear. They also sell it in sports stores but what this clothing does is it has ceramics in it that reflect back our own body's infrared light to heal us. So Tom Brady doesn't talk that much about it. He just says, hey, I'm 44 years old. This is what I'm wearing. Go buy it, right? But the science behind it is very sound. And Francisco, who's very famous actually in the world of photobiomodulation, I think this clothing is going to keep improving because we need to have more ways to keep our body in balance, especially with these external forces that nobody's going to get rid of their cell phone today or stop watching television. Some people will watch less of it. They might not look at it as much, but most people, out of the 8 billion people, we're going to have a lot of people.
Yeah,
so we need to have more healing things that we do.
Yeah, I always tell people, just control what you can, and then the rest you kind of have to pick your poison,
Right.
to choose your poison in this reality. It's all around. So I want to go and ask you a question here about. Would you say so? Let's go back to kind of what's happening in this reality. You mentioned fear, and everything is being driven by fear now, and it's more than ever again important to become aware of these toxins, especially the metaphysical ones that we can't see or hear or touch. It's just coming at us. So when did everything that's been happening in 2020, 2021, 2022, when did it become real for you? When were you like, oh, this is something different?
Well, as soon as I heard about the pandemic, I knew that there was some manipulation going on because there's never been a study with any of these jabs that works. It doesn't work. It makes no sense. There's never been a study. And there's a group of people obviously that are doing this for greed and for manipulation. But the reality is that we have a very high functioning thinking immune system. There's never been a virus on Earth until this one that they talk about that gets stronger over time. A virus does not want to kill its host. The virus wants to make you sick enough to stay alive so that the virus can stay alive. It doesn't want to kill you, and so it just seems ridiculous. And then to have them running basically mock programs just months before it comes out, and it's scary. And there's so many blind people that can't think anymore. People just don't think. Do your research. If you do your research, there's no way you would believe any of this crap. In fact, we'd all have to be wearing hazmat suits for it to work. And for them to shut down our immunity by wearing masks, we're breathing in our own waste. And there's actually proof now. There's study after study that shows the mask has caused more damage than it did help because it doesn't do anything unless you're performing surgery. And you're trying not to spit in an open wound, because you're talking and communicating. That mask is more for that, not for protecting us against viruses. It's the craziest thing. But of course, they're going to get whatever the scenario is. I tell people, you've got to focus on you, and you can't let the witch doctors scare you. There's evidence of tribal communities where the witch doctor just has to look at you and you die. Wow. People go, well, what about all the people that died? Well, yeah, It's a weapon. So you've got to mobilize your own inner weapons. You know, there's a whole study called psychotronics, which is machines or technology that's all geared to protect us against this electronic warfare. We're at war, unfortunately. When they put up 5G towers that were used in World War II to silence people and for crowd control, and now they're broadcasting our phones, we could have, in my reality, if I was creating this, we could have these towers broadcasting healing frequencies. Like they could go on a every 2-minute change out to another solfeggio frequency, giving us, we could be all bathing in these healing frequencies. There's no reason.
I've actually heard that there's the higher millimeter waves is worth, it's not as good to transmit information because you need so many of them close together, where the lower range you can actually go further distances. So it even to like the concept of what they're trying to justify it for, it's no good.
Well, yeah, when we talk about our cellular DNA is going into what they call the cell danger response. So if you think about our Earth and the sun and all the frequencies that our bodies are used to over the 200,000 years these bodies have been alive, we usually, if we were on a spaceship coming to Earth, the frequencies of the planet would be between 0.5 and 100. These are called Earth frequencies. From, you know, in the brain also has an evoked potential, which means it matches the potentiality of the frequencies of 0.05 to 100. Now, there are some Buddhist meditators that got up to 300, you know, but that's very rare. You know, we don't see that very often. We've seen some people with 70 and 80 hertz frequency in their brain, but never over 100. But I've only measured 30,000 brains, so it could be there could be people out there, right? So, but when these towers hit us, 50 million pulses per second. We're used to 0.5 to 100 pulses per second.
Wow.
So what's happening is the cells, which through something called epigenetics, when we walk into a room and let's say it's all healing light and everything's good, our body will start to sync and organize itself and then express as your best self, because every 40 seconds, what they used to call junk DNA is now the DNA they know is changing who you are every 40 seconds. So the reason they called it junk is back in 2003, they couldn't measure it. Now we can. In 2018, they came up with technology that knows it's so fast. Our body is changing. Now, when it gets hit by these 50 million pulses, the body doesn't know what to do. So when Dan DeBon, who wrote the book Radiation Nation, I'm on their board because they use BrainTap as the first line of defense against this EMF poisoning, really, because it's a digital poisoning. Basically those cells are going 50 million times. The cells are trying to figure out what is that, because it wants to match that frequency. And just to use
so there's so much chaos. There's so much chaos that the cell is just always in a chronic state of like survival, right? Because it wants to get into sync with it, but it can't. So it's like always trying to figure out. Wow.
Right. It shuts down just like being in a fetal position. And that's every cell. So it snuffs out the mitochondria, the energy of the cell. So that's why we need to use devices like I'm wearing this little device that has been proven to block EMF radiation. I have them on my computer. The best thing you can do is
I have this in front of my computer.
Perfect. I have that. I have one of those at home too. So when you're there, you can break up the field. And now when people go, well, that sounds like some kind of metaphysical stuff. And the reality is that we've used energy medicine ever since X-rays. X-rays are energy medicine.
Oh, I love that.
When we think about all of these different energy, it's just a different type of energy. When we think of quantum computers, our cell phone is a quantum computer. It's taking information from the quantum realm, translating it into words and text and videos and movies. Now that's affecting us because it's in this environment. So I think these bodies will evolve because that's what they do. But in 200,000 years, we've never been hit with this. In the last 40 years, as we've really increased radio, TV, and all of these different broadbands that the body hits, you know, some people, it's like they're filtering out the people that can't handle it. They're getting super sick. And what they're finding is a lot of them are getting like flu-like symptoms. that are like COVID-like symptoms.
I've been talking to a bunch of people about this, and I agree with everything that you've said. And my theory is it's radiation poisoning. We're getting the frequencies and all this, like dirty electricity coming at us, and so it's just radiation to the cells.
Right. So we have to really protect ourselves, and grounding is a big part of that. Clint Oprah, who's a friend of mine, he wrote the book Earthing. I think that like on my place where my computer is right here, it's on a grounding mat. So all I have to do is touch it and I ground that energy. We've shown that the average person is walking around with about 3 volts of energy moving through their system. We should be at 0 point.
Wow.
We should have 0 energy resonating in our system. And the 0 point means that it's always transacting. It's like a flow state. We bring energy in from the earth to our body sends energy to the earth. It's a symbiotic. And if people haven't researched that, just go to earthing.com, do some research what Clint Oprah's doing. We use it with our clinics where we do BrainTap. So it can bring down inflammation. Because one of the biggest problems we have now in the medical world is inflammation. Not only inflammation of the brain, but just inflammation of the whole body. I mean, with the abuse of sugar and things of this nature, our bodies and brains are getting assaulted really on a daily basis.
The cell. I always think like this, like the inflammation. There's water going into our cells, and we're just inflaming, and they're trying to protect themselves and getting bigger. And so some people they'll look like they're fatter, or there's probably some brain inflammation, can't think straight, foggy memory. So I have to ask this question. Why buy BrainTap then? I mean, if I can just go walk on the beach, I can just go outside and look at blue light, the better frequency blue light. So what's better about BrainTap that I just can't get naturally?
Well, the main reason is it doesn't change brainwaves that much. I mean, you can, but it takes a long time. Like if in our history, even going to India, which we're partners with AIMS India, which is like MIT, but they have 6 of them in India because they have a lot more people. We've even tracked gurus, and we were able to improve their brainwaves.
Oh,
because your brain learns independent of your conscious mind. This is where the people that think they're so smart, because it's not about what you know, it's about what you do. Ooh. We're not humans doing, we're humans being. So we have to be in that state. So when you're in that being state and you're in the right environment. Now the problem is the cities and where most people hang out happens to be in high beta, which is between 12 and 13 to on up to 40. And this can be very stressful for the body. Now we need that. We need our brain needs a balance of these brain waves, not one or the other. But what we find is that most people have high beta and high delta, and they have very little alpha and theta. And the problem there is that they don't have the neurotransmitters, because each of these brain waves, there's 54 different neurotransmitters. And as you go through these different brain waves, and I've only mentioned 5 of them, they can break them down into a lot more different names and things of that nature. But the reality is each of those brain waves signals the gut to produce the neurotransmitters we need for activity. Now, when we did our study in Brazil, we just finished it. We finished 3 different pharmaceutical studies taking BrainTap and working with fibromyalgia, and we went against opioids. All 3 studies, we were significant winners. Opioids do not work long term. They're very damaging to the body, and they have a very short half-life in the body, which means even during the day that you're taking them, you're going to be in pain. Now with BrainTap, you do have to do it 3 times a day to stay out of pain. But once the brain learns, it will continue to modulate. And what we find is once we increase alpha to about 30% and theta to about 15%, the pain and discomfort leaves, because those 2 brainwave states create natural analgesia, our body's natural capacity to handle pain. My dad, when I was 19 years old, I had painless surgery with my shoulder. My dad did nothing but Silva. He taught me how to go to level. They opened up my shoulder. They did a surgery, no anesthetic, and I felt no pain, no discomfort. Wow. And then when I came out, of course, I was feeling a little pain. So he taught me a little technique to take that pain away. So I teach that in BrainTap as well. I teach people how to do that. I'm not saying you can go through painless surgery. That took a lot of training, and my dad you're with me every day. But we do work with people that can't use anesthetic, because there are certain people that can't go under the knife with, it's easier just to put the gas on and do the surgery.
Turn them off. It's interesting. I'm actually Brazilian, by the way, so it's really cool that you went to Brazil and you did that there. I can connect to that deeply. But you know what I've noticed? I have been doing BrainTap twice, sometimes 3 times a day, because I'm always in front of the computer. I'm always holding my phone. I work from my phone a lot. And what I've noticed recently is that when I haven't done the ones about pain specifically, but I've noticed that as soon as I put it on and you start to speak, I can feel the energy in my body start to calm, the tension starts to go down. And then my hands start to get hot and vibrate like heat.
Yeah.
And so what is happening there? I was so curious to ask you.
Yeah. Our SILS machine, which is our clinical model that we started from back in the 80s, was all biofeedback, not neurofeedback. So in biofeedback, if you can make your hands warm, we know that you can get out of headache pain and discomfort. That's circulation. And some people feel it more than others. But that's one of the things. We would actually have you holding on to temperature gauges. And when we were doing it, if we were doing it manually, we would measure that and then amplify the experience to get your hands to be warmer. So the warmer you can make you're basically, that's a way for the energy to leave the body. And the body it doesn't want it stagnant. I tell people, if the energy stays in the system, it's like burning out a light bulb. It's meant to flow. Bring that energy through. And when we're in that flow state, our body is healthier and we have more energy.
Flow state. If you guys are listening, my audience loves the flow state. I talk about the flow state all the time. I say we should be in flow state all the time, where time stops existing and you're just being.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So I have a question. Has most of your research and everything that you built into this, I know you've been doing this since the 80s, but are you aware of Dr. Joe Dispenza, Jim Quick?
Yeah, so I've interviewed both of them, and we brought Joe Dispenza out to Quantum University. I'm the dean of brain-based medicine at Quantum University, so he's awesome. I mean, he's been doing this for, I guess, close to 30, 40 years. So since what the bleep do we know? I mean, he's been out there doing his thing. So
he was my first time he was the first one that I heard about neuroplasticity and like how the brain can we can fix ourselves. We can imagine enough, and placebo nocebo effects. That's when I first heard about all of that. So what would you say is the amount of time it takes to change your mind using BrainTap? Like to because it sounds to me like BrainTap, or it feels to me like BrainTap is sort of like a way to I don't know another way to say this, but trick yourself into believing in yourself. So what would you say is the average time frame it takes for someone to go through that process and actually start to change their mind?
Yeah, unfortunately, you froze up on the first part of your question. So
yes, I'll re-ask. I just realized that you were frozen there for a second. So my question now is, what would you say is the average amount of time it takes for someone to change their mind? After using BrainTap for a while, I've noticed this. It feels like it's like and I don't know another way to say this, but it feels like it's like a way for me to trick myself into believing in myself. So what's your perspective on that?
Right. Well, there's a whole strategy behind each series. So there's sessions that are meant to disassociate you from your problems, because so many people identify with their problem. They think they're fat. They think they're a smoker. They think they're an alcoholic. The reality is we are infinite beings with potential to do whatever we want. But if you want to be those things, then your brain will prove you right. So the first step is to do that. So what we find is that most people will start making conscious decisions, better conscious decisions almost right away, because it's the top of the mind. It's like when you buy a new car, you drive it off the lot, and you thought you had picked out this car that nobody else had, but on the drive home, you see 4 or 5 of them, and you go, whoa, these cars are everywhere, because this is called the reticular activating system. So if we can keep that part of the brain active in doing something positive for yourself, focusing on the positive, what we find is that as you go through it, I tell people with BrainTap, we're not teaching you what to think, we're teaching you how to think about situations. So the number 2 step is to realize that you have within you intrinsically the answers to your problem. Because if it wasn't if there wasn't an answer, it wouldn't be a problem. It would be a law of nature. So when you think so the problem most people have is they don't like the solution.
Hmm.
You know, whatever it is, you don't like your job, then go get educated, go get another job. You know, don't blame it on your boss. Don't blame it on what's going on. You know, you have control. So that's just one scenario. If you don't like your relationship, then improve yourself, make your relationship better, do what you can on your part, or go find a better relationship. You
Hmm.
know, there's different things. So that's the next step. And then we have all these different, I wrote a book called Discover the Language of the Mind. It has my 13 core techniques. That book, basically, I wrote it for therapists, and it has scripts in it because I think that too much is being done with talk therapy that isn't resourceful. I've never seen a study with talk therapy that's better than 20%.
Hmm.
Placebo now is almost 40%. There's a really good
Wow.
book called Suggestible You, and he did a study, and they showed now, you know, they even have a gene that shows those people have a propensity to be more placebo positive. And
Oh,
the drug
interesting.
companies, unfortunately, can sort those out, which means they can pass through more drugs because they get rid of the placebo positive people.
Wow.
So the crazy thing is that you know, your belief in what works or doesn't work has a big influence on everything.
Hmm.
I mean, you know, we can't make other people change, but we can give them conditions or create the environment for them to change. And then when their brain decides, hey, I'm going to knock these tumblers over, I'm going to undo this lock and everything's going to click in place, it was because their brain decided to do that, not because of some external force. Now, it could put you into that position. That's where a lot of people need a breakdown to have a breakthrough. I don't
Hmm.
believe you need a breakdown to have a breakthrough. You can have breakthroughs without all these, you know, but that's, if you think you talked about the hero's journey, everyone is going through the night of the soul, right? The dark night of the soul. I tell people, you're now incubating your superpower. What are you going to do when your struggles are over? How are you going to use that to enhance yourself and you enhance all of humankind? What is going to happen? What is, because we're all here as teachers, we're all here to show and express and to evolve and improve. So what's your contribution? If you're an energy drain on the system, you're going to be spit out.
Hmm.
But if you're adding into the energy grid of the system, let's say the positive thinking, the improvements and things like that, you know, just look at, you know, there's so many people that when you see them in the political sphere, they just get uglier with time. They just look like they've been dragged behind a pickup truck for 4 years. You know, look at the presidents. I mean, I would not want that job. I mean, the stress, because they're not being taught how to handle that stress. Right now, we're in a place where everything seems to be moving very fast.
Hmm.
It's a perceptual thing, and but nobody's slowing down. And
Oof.
you have the time to slow
That's
down,
the
recover. And that's where
yeah.
the brain fitness comes in, because we need those periods of high stress, but you can't keep doing it all the time. That's why you have to sharpen knives. You know, you can't just keep cutting. At some point, you got to sharpen those knives. We got to sharpen our brains and return back with more skills and resources.
I mean, it's a massive awareness of the spectrum we are currently dancing on. It's like you can be, you know, you can be on the fear side and lying to yourself, or you can be on the love side and lying to yourself. I mean, it really is awareness of living in your truth in the moment. So you mentioned there about everything speeding up, and nobody's trying to balance out the other side of the spectrum. What are your thoughts on technology, on Chat GPT and this transhumanistic agenda that it feels like is all moving towards? I mean, are we going to this next level? I mean, because it feels like this Chat GPT is taking over our ability to create now, or not taking over, but facilitating creation. Well, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, I think that the people that are creative are still going to find ways to use chat,
Yeah,
you know, in this
me.
way and do it. But I think what people are, if people become dependent upon that and they lose their
Mm,
capacity to think, that's already happened.
hmm.
I mean, I always tell people, if you're wondering if you're going to have a good day, you got to turn on the news to figure out if it's sunny outside so you can be smiling and happy. You got a problem. We need to create our own weather. So these can all be really good tools. I tell people, it's like a gun. A gun can be used to harm somebody, or it can be used to defend yourself. It can be used to go get your food. It has a lot of different ways of using it. And I think the same thing's true. And I think that there will be some merging of people with technology, and I don't think that's going to stop. But I think that everything that technology does, we do already.
I love that. That's a good answer. Yes.
The technology is just showing us on an external environment what we already do internally. There are people, like when I met the people that did the Stargate program, remote viewing, they're already doing that. And to them, it's like watching television. They can go to another, because with quantum entanglement, which they've already proven exists, they say we're simply years away from having a teleporter. They're already projecting these quarks across time and space, and there's this entanglement within universes. At one time we were all in the same place. We were all connected. So if we start to live our lives as if we really believe that, then life's going to be much better, and we'll create technology that will help us. But right now, I think, unfortunately, I have a T-shirt that says, "Let's make, I think, 1984 fiction again." Because we have so much more. Right now, it's being used to manipulate us.
Yeah.
When you only have one source of truth, and that truth is wrong, dead wrong, proven by science, but they keep yelling it loud enough, long enough, that there's still going to be those people that are basically non-thinkers, that don't want to think. They just want to get in their car, drive home, get their six-pack, watch the news, believe the story, go to sleep, rinse and repeat, and continue. That's a hard life. And there's going to be some hard decisions for people. I think that, we're in a time now where there's no other thing to say. There's something going on where they want to get rid of a bunch of people, because there's no reason. To me, I can't believe people are actually doing this to other people. And then they twist it to say, this or that. And the reality is that we were fine. Most of the diseases we have today that are ruining our world were not even in existence in the 70s.
It's because of the people that are.
Yeah. So they've created the environment. It's all about the environment. So if like your pyramid and things like that, we're going to find that's the kind of technology that I'm looking forward to, because even though I believe that there's always going to be these forces of darkness, unfortunately, that greed and, all these things. But I believe that doesn't matter how dark this room is that I'm in. If I turn on the light, that darkness goes. So everyone needs to understand that you have the light, you have the force, you are much more powerful. What's inside of you is much more powerful than anything around you or outside of you. But if you give away your power to EMF, or you give away your power to the political scene, you give your power to your family, to your brothers, sisters, teachers, preachers, whatever it is, then you've given a piece of yourself away. And your brain will lower your capacity to work, because you always will get what you believe about yourself. It just keeps repeating itself. That's why they say that we speak anywhere between 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and over 80% are negative. Now, this is because our genetics, who we are, we've made it. These genetics that we have, you and I, made it from the beginning of time to now. We didn't get eaten by the saber-toothed tiger. We didn't get blown up in a cork or whatever. We're here now, and we should be celebrating that, not thinking that the next shoe is going to drop and the earth is going to change. And just by the way, for those people saying there's too many people on earth, they did a study. If we took the state of Texas and we gave everybody as much room as they have in Japan, everyone in the world would fit in the state of Texas.
Wow.
So there's plenty of room on this planet. Yeah. It's just the way that they're doing it. When you go to places like Chick-fil-A and they give you 5 pounds of trash even when you eat inside the restaurant, and it's styrofoam and destroying the environment. And they're doing it all based on the fact that they're telling everybody they're Christian, but they're destroying the environment. There's a problem there.
Mm-hmm.
That should be out. That's the kind of stuff that should be outlawed. That's a waste. Why don't they do their dishes? You're eating in the restaurant. Why are you contaminating our planet? And it's all stuff that isn't recyclable.
Oh, this is a good question. What does toxic capitalism mean to you?
Well, I think toxic capitalism means, for instance, if I want to build a toxic dump somewhere and I donate land somewhere else so I can pollute over here, that's toxic capitalism. That doesn't work. You can't destroy over here and just give us land over here in the desert that doesn't do anything. It's like they're right now, if they, I think Elon Musk just said, if we could take the light from the sun that's hitting our planet, we could power 100 Earths every minute. I mean, we just don't have the technology yet. That's the kind of technology I'm looking forward to and then instead of storing it in batteries, what if we use the world's largest capacitor, the Earth, to store that energy and replay it back into the system? I mean, Tesla did it.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
The technology's out there. It's just a matter of how can they can't bill for it.
Yeah. See, I would argue that we do have the technology, but it doesn't make money.
Yeah.
like they want to meter, the systems, the people with that mindset, with a toxic mindset of like, justify here by destroying, or destroy here by, and then justify here. Yeah. They know that they can do it. It's just, you can't meter.
Even using Bezos as an example. What is he doing? Now, he just started a fund for $150 million to help homeless people. Great. Where did he get the money from? Why don't when you think of what happens with, now there's no local, everything's shipped, everything's boxed, everything's delivered. The cost of getting a package is free to us, supposedly, but our government is paying for all of their shipping. To me, that's toxic capitalism.
This is
he got all the money.
Yeah. I've been saying this, the real war here is like a war on dependency. The more we become aware of our dependency on all levels to these centralized systems, the more we can start to take back that power. Right. Or else we're always going to feel in control or controlled, controlled by the systems, the metaphysical systems.
Before 1960, almost every American had their own plot of land and produced their own vegetables for their table.
Really?
That's been removed.
Wow.
So, but now we have hydroponics. Yeah. We could have a room in our home that has the right lighting. We could have all the really beautiful vegetables and fruits that we want to eat. That technology is available now, but the problem is it takes work. So
yeah, that's what I was about to say. I have in my house 2 tower gardens. Is these towers, and you can put the food on it. It's a hydroponic.
Perfect.
But you got to do it. You got to take care of it. And that's where most people are, again, it goes back to that dependency, right? It's like we have the physical dependencies, but then there's all these emotional, spiritual, relational dependencies that most aren't aware of. So what do you do in your life, Dr. Patrick? What do you do in your life to help? What's a life hack that you do to help not react emotionally to these external forces?
Well, every morning I get up 2 hours before I talk to anybody or look at my phone, and I do my own little rituals when I'm home. On the road, I do it in an hour because I don't have all my technology there. But I typically get up in the morning and I do my infrared sauna with BrainTap. I have a pop-up. Now, if I'm at the office, I have an in-light sauna that's bigger, but I do it at home. And then I do my meditation because I still do TM, but I put on the BrainTap and I use the gamma frequencies so I can get that psilocybin kind of trip every morning. And, that's what happens. And then I like watching like Gaia television. And that's where you see Joe Dispenza has a really nice one called Rewire. And there's a whole bunch of really cool stuff. I'm also into some crazy things that most people probably wouldn't watch, but they're on Gaia. So you can watch them, no problem.
All the rabbit holes.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I usually jump on my mini tramp, or I use I have a sonic vibration system. And usually I also have we have a brain protocol for laser while I'm watching that before I jump, because lasers will release fat into the system. And so you use the mini tramp or the vibration to burn up that energy. And then by the time I'm done, it takes about 2 hours to do all those things. And I have a in harmony vibration pad that I use that you can sit in and you get to hear the sound frequencies. And I usually use the solfeggio frequency. I just rotate through the 10 frequencies every day. Every 10 days it rotates through again, and just tune up my body. And then during the day, at some point here at the office, I will choose one. We have 18 stations here with our biohacking lab. So I'll do something every day and try to do something a little different in the middle of the day to reboot. And I have it scheduled in my schedule to go do a BrainTap session in the afternoon, because I know I've seen the benefits of that to the brain. And, we're all moving in the same direction. We want to keep our brains healthy and whole. So that's a main thing. At night, I don't really need to use the BrainTap because I sleep really well. Usually have, between an 85 and 94 or something on my Oura ring. But if I'm on the road, I will do a Delta session before going to bed, because I'm in a strange place and I want to make sure I get that deep Delta while I'm traveling.
Yeah, no, that's a powerful. Wow, you have a really good routine there. Like, very, very aware of the energies and the electricity around you to make sure that the cells are in a good place. Thank you for sharing all that. Yeah, I have a Oura ring myself, and I'm always checking to see what my sleep score is. And I noticed that when I don't do BrainTap, it's not that good for whatever. I mean, it must be working.
Think of your body like a capacitor. In electric circuit, a capacitor holds a charge, and then at a certain point, it discharges. We all have a discharge point. If we get to that point, usually we've made somebody angry or upset, or ourselves. So we need to discharge it. But if that energy is moving through the system, then you reboot. And it really, when you do it during the day, if you can get rid of that stress during the day, it's not as hard for your body to get into those deep rhythms of sleep at night. Most people have seen children when they're really tired and they can't sleep. They go, "Oh, he's too tired to sleep." Well, we need energy to sleep. But it's not the form of energy like a coffee or sugar or something like that. It's light energy, but at the right time. In the cells, the mitochondria needs to be filled up. Then when you go to sleep, now you can dream, you can process, you can basically figure things out, store, categorize, and organize your activities and plan your future, because that's what you're doing while you're sleeping. Your subconscious never sleeps. So it's just organizing everything.
Ooh, I've never heard of it that way. We need energy to sleep. That makes sense. Makes total sense. It's doing so many things when we're asleep. It's healing us. It's to process, to organize. I mean, that's on point. So a last few questions here before we end. So with everything that you've experienced, everything that you've researched, taking in all the rabbit holes from Gaia, how do you see humanity moving forward in this reality in these next couple of years?
Well, I think we're moving toward more of like a Star Trek kind of world. People are finding that they don't care what everybody else wants. There's a certain group of people that says, "I want to be healthy." Biohackers are proving this. I mean, they're finding out, hey, I don't want to go to the doctor to tell me if I'm doing well or not. I can have my Oura ring tell me if I'm sleeping well. I can measure my foods. I can do things. I think that the last 2 years, more money's been spent on what they would call alternative care than sick care. And I think that's going to continue on, because it's a lot easier to keep a building repaired rather than let it get dilapidated and try to rebuild it. So our bodies are the same way. I think that we're definitely on a transition, and I do believe that light will win. I mean, these guys, negativity, they're killing out their own people. So, what's going to happen? I mean,
there won't be any left. And then there's, that's literally,
I don't know what the deal is. I mean, it's like they want to, if it is true, which it seems to be, that they're trying to basically cull the herd. All the people that support them are the ones that are, I don't know one person that had the vaccine that doesn't compromised in some way. I don't personally know.
And our talk, everybody that I know that has taken it is now talking about it like, I shouldn't have done that. That was a bad idea. It's interesting because I've looked at it as like what's going to happen is they're because they're doing it to their own people, the people that are falling to the fear or feeling safe in the fear. Because if you're not there right now, you're not in the fear. You're becoming aware and you're waking up and you're like, I'm questioning things, and that's not fear, that's curiosity. So it's like that reality, right, is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller worth of people in it. And then this reality is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger of people becoming aware and waking up.
Well, when you go to like Dave Asprey event, which he's doing one in June, which we go every year, I mean, that's just getting bigger and bigger. And these are people that realize if you want to be healthy, you've got to have physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health. You've got to you've got to be you got to be a 100-watt light bulb around 25-watt light bulbs. Don't fall prey to what brings you down. Find what brings you passion or brings you excitement, and follow that excitement and be healthy at the same time. You don't have to, they're not, when you go to these events, it's not like you see them all at the bar getting super drunk and doing things. They're looking at, because they know they'll read their Oura ring the next morning and they'll go, hey, that didn't work for me. And so I think that people are learning that. And just what's happened to our food. I mean, that is one example. They don't even care. Like seed oils, they are destroying.
That is other than EMF. I'm going to say that that's number 2 or number 1. Like they kind of go back and forth and being the most toxic thing you can consume.
And they work with each other. That's the sad part.
What do you mean? Hold on a second.
Well, think of your system as we are biological beings that interact with our environment. So you put seed oils in, they get deposited in the body. Think of it like little crystals in a radio.
Right.
They're receiving and transmitting information. So they've blocked the endocrine system. They've blocked our ability to communicate within our body. Because
goodness, I just realized, fats. Wow.
So our body is being built by the foods, by the thoughts, by the water we're drinking. And, when they put also the plastics that are in our bodies. I mean, all of those things, even coffee lids. I was at a conference and they showed how if you just take your coffee lid off, if you get a coffee out and you just take that lid while the steam is going there, it actually leaches into the coffee and causes almost like estrogen responses in the body. Wow. So there's just so many weird things that they don't think about the long term. We're the long term experiment. People are. So some people are getting ahead of the game, like the biohackers, and they're finding out, hey, if we can optimize our own health, we know that during the last 3 years, if you've taken care of yourself, you're high energy. I never got anything, but apparently I got COVID somewhere along the way. I mean, I never felt it, but I got tested. And they said, you got COVID. I go, no, I don't. I mean, I don't have COVID. I might have a flu or something at some point down the road. So it's in my body, but it didn't affect me. So, but if you have one thing for the listeners, stress is the biggest reason why people have diabetes. It's not always the Snickers bar. Your liver produces as much sugar as a candy bar with every stressful event. So if you're watching the news, getting hit after hit after hit of this stress, and then you go to bed, you can only have 1 tablespoon of circulating sugar in the bloodstream. If not, the body's got to produce fat cells to encapsulate that toxin and protect you from basically insulin poisoning. So your body is protecting you. So at night, best thing you can do, turn off the television or watch comedies if you're going to watch it. Do something that's fun. You can always watch the news in the morning when you have time to burn it off. I get my news from what's it called? Epoch Times. I like their news. It's not always the best, but at least they tell both sides. And I like Robert Kennedy. He's always in there, sharing his wisdom and things like that.
Wow. Yeah. This is powerful. I mean, this is exactly what we need to start doing, guys, is start becoming aware of sugar. Like that's one of my biggest things. And I can attest to this. The CGMs, constant glucose monitors, I've had those. And every time I've gotten into a stressful state in the middle of the day, literally the sugar spikes and then it drops 30, 40 points in an hour. It's insane.
There's a good book called Get Off Your Sugar, which is written by a friend of mine, Daryl Joffrey. I can actually introduce him to you. He also has a book called Get Off Your Acid. And he's a pretty famous guy. I met him in New York, but now he lives down in Naples. But his books are awesome. And they talk about, he used BrainTap to help him get off sugar and things like that. So he writes about it in the Get Off Your Sugar book.
I'm currently using BrainTap for that, and I want to quote you: "Nothing tastes as good as healthy feels." Period.
Right. Right.
That's literally has been my mantra now, and every time I see sugar, it's stop sign right in front of my face. So
Awesome.
I'm on.
Yeah, you're getting it there.
Yeah.
The brain can learn to do the things we want it to do, but if we just leave it up to society, it doesn't always have our best interest because they want us to be consumers.
Right.
And what you have to do to be healthy is a little bit more expensive, but it's not expensive if you look at the life you're leading, because you don't need as much food, right? I only eat 2 meals a day now. And one of my meals is typically a biohack meal, where I'm really trying to eat just all super good foods. And then if I'm out, I can eat, I can give myself a little permission to have something more than salads and steak or whatever I'm doing, maybe even have a little dessert every once in a while if I'm with my grandkids. But you can't do that every meal. You can't have dessert for every meal. Like some people believe that Krispy Kremes is a health food,
the U.S. government apparently believes Cheerios is on the food pyramid now.
Right.
Yeah, this is amazing. I've met a few people that don't eat a lot. And I've noticed that the ones that don't consume as much as the norm, they have more energy. They're more active. They're glowing almost, like literally, like we're light beings. There's actual like more light coming out of their skin for some reason. So yes, that's the thing that we should be shifting into more of a purging reality now than a consuming reality.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dr. Patrick. You were amazing. Guys, please check out Dr. Patrick Porter. His website is BrainTap Tech or braintap.com, and then the Instagram handle is BrainTap Tech. Make sure you check it out. Is there anything you want to say here or anything you want to plug before I ask my last question?
No, but they can go to braintap.com or use your link if we should get you one of our links, and they can go there and they can have a free book and they can have free time on the app. So, that's the biggest thing is it's one of those things where just use it for yourself. You'll feel it within the 14 days. And if you don't, then maybe it's not for you, but we know it. We have a lot of users. I mean, we have, we're growing, and like I said at the beginning, we have the South Poles now using it. So we have people all over the world now using it.
Man, I would say it's for everyone. And if you don't feel that it's resonating in the first couple of weeks, that's probably why you need it. You probably need it that much more because it's not affecting you. Maybe there's like all these other layers that you need to go through first to be able to start hitting the subconscious mind, the nervous system. So I would say actually do it if it doesn't feel right. Thank you, Dr. Patrick Porter. So last question. You're standing, you have a few minutes, you're standing in front of millions of people, and you have a few minutes to speak. What do you leave them with?
That you are far greater than anyone has told you about. And all you need to do is relax and allow yourself to be you. Forget about what everybody else told you. Once you find out who you are and let that shine, your life is going to change in marvelous ways. You don't even know yet. But as long as you're thinking that someone else, something else is going to come and save you, you're the savior. You're the one we're waiting for. So which one of you is going to step up and be that person? Because one of you is going to activate this conscious reality and take us to the next level.
Yes. Love it. Love it. Thank you, Dr. Porter. I really appreciate your time, your energy, and sharing your wisdom, your discernment with my audience. Again, guys, please check him out. Dr. Patrick Porter. You will not, I promise you, it will change your life. BrainTap has changed my life in so many ways. And I know that it will for you guys that are watching this because you're kind of like me. You're in front of the computer, working in crypto, trading. And this right here is going to help you go to the calming side of reality where it's not so chaotic. All right. Thank you guys. Love you. And always remember, gamify your abundance. Peace out, guys.